Hey guys, I'm Matt Hernandez, and today I'm going to take you with me to a high school football game, and we're going to test out the Sony A1 Mark II. Okay, so we did a video earlier on using the A1 II for portraits, and now we're going to use it for action to showcase the autofocus. So that's one of the highlights of this camera, is that the A1, the original A1, had really good autofocus, but this has better because it has the AI dedicated chip to it. It can recognize people when they turn around, and it can learn. So theoretically, it should be significantly better. As I stated in the other video, the body is just like the A9 III, which is probably my favorite camera body that I've ever owned. It feels great in your hand. It handles really well. The screen flips out any way that you want it to, which was the main drawback of the original A1, and why I started using the A7R5 for portraits more, because I like the screen better. As far as the camera, the A1 was still better. It did more things better. It did everything well, really. But now that this one, the Mark II, has the body of the A9 III and the screen, it really is even more complete than the original. So other than that, the sensor is the same. It's a 50 megapixel sensor. It's 30 frames a second. It does have the speed burst button on it. The autofocus, like I said, is better. The stabilization is better. It's 8.5 times stabilization in body, which is amazing. And that's going to help with stills and video both, obviously. And other than that, let's see, what else? I'm drawing a blank right now. Other than that, the ISO is supposed to be one stop better also. So we did test that out. We shot all the way up to 12,800 at this football game, and it performed really, I was pretty amazed at how good the quality was. So, you know, this camera is pre-production, so I can't read RAW files on it yet. So I did shoot JPEG. So the camera was running some noise reduction itself, but I was really blown away. I've shot 12,800 in certain situations before at football games, but it's usually a little bit too noisy, honestly, for my taste. But this one, I was a little skeptical whenever they mentioned that in the video that I watched, that was explaining how the noise was better in this. But I was, honestly, after I tested it tonight, I'm sold. It was pretty unbelievable. So the main difference in this and the A9 III, there's two really main differences. Number one, it is 50 megapixels versus 26. So I think it's 26, 25 or 26 in the A9 III. So when you shoot, so I have the 300-2.8, that's the longest glass that I own. That's what I shoot football with. When you use crop mode, which is 1.5 times crop, I have my AEL button on the back set to do that during games. So I essentially turn this 300 millimeter lens into a 450. Now the A9 III is going to go back down to 12 megapixels when you do that, because it's going to cut the frame in half. So this one goes from 50 to 25, which is, you know, not a big deal at all. And you still have a little bit more resolution if you want to crop in more. Now the A9 III, you're probably not going to want to crop more than 12 megapixels, so you know you need to leave it there. So that is nice to have the flexibility, definitely. As far as the frames per second, this goes, this is 30 just like the original A1. That's fine with me. 120, I guess, in certain situations could be good. I still haven't used it yet. So that's, you know, that's more than enough. So I think that's fine. Now the one thing that the biggest difference is, this does not have the global shutter. So the sensor on the A9 III is red at once. This one is not. It's still red line by line. And in most situations, the readout is so fast, it's not going to matter. I will say, at this particular game that I shot tonight, it did come into play because the lights were older and there was flicker. So that's when the lights are refreshing. The naked eye can't see it, but it creates a banding across the photo, like a brown-orange type tint. And there is an anti-flicker setting on all these cameras, and I had that on. I also had the variable shutter turned on. Now, so when you also can shoot an electronic or mechanical shutter. Now, when you switch to mechanical, the flicker is not as bad, which I did that. I turned anti-flicker on the whole time, and there still was a little bit. So I think at most stadiums with newer LED lights, it's not going to be an issue. This is an older stadium. It still does have older lights, and it was a little bit of a problem. Now, when I switched to mechanical shutter, it went away. Now, you're not going to get as many frames per second when you do that, number one. So when I went back to auto, then I turned a variable shutter on, which is going to allow you to shoot in different shutter speeds than normal. So I think I was at like 960 at one point, like 899 at one point, and I was trying different ones to see what's going to work best, and that did definitely help. But there still was a little bit of banding, so I'll show you in a little bit of flicker. So I'll show you in the photos here. So at the beginning of the game, it was worse, and then once I realized that I didn't have that turned on, it definitely helped. But let's look at some of the pictures here. Okay, so I'm just going to go. Actually, let's look at some of the footage first. So here's a couple of videos of me just on the sidelines with the monitor on the camera. So we screen recorded with the monitor so that you could see the focus and the autofocus and how it was behaving, and it was really good. I mean, it's the same as the A9 III, and which is the best that I've personally ever seen. So here's another one real quick, a little bit more zoomed in so you can see what I'm looking at whenever I'm shooting. So I started out the game, most of the times in this stadium, and pretty much every high school football stadium I shoot at, I'm usually at 1/1000th of a second, f2.8, and then ISO, depending, it could be 5,000, it might be all the way up to 8,000 or 10,000 sometimes. I don't usually go all the way up to 12,800. I did tonight just to see what it was gonna look like and see if it was as good as advertised, and like I said, I was very impressed. So there's one of the shots that I got zoomed in there on the back of the monitor, and the autofocus performed, like I said, it was pretty awesome. It was very sticky, and there was a couple times that I lost focus, but that's probably due to my camera shake more than anything, honestly, and not being steady. There's one on the sideline, so you can see the 300 there. So we didn't have, like I said in the earlier video, I did put the A9 III battery grip on this camera, on the A1 Mark II, whenever I shot my portraits. I didn't do it at the game because I had it on my actual A9 III. So, but I will say the battery seemed to last quite a bit longer than my other batteries, which I think it's the same battery. They do have a new dual charger too, which is really cool because it charges the batteries. I think it charges them at the same time, but it also charges them a lot faster too. But I was very impressed with the battery life. Okay. Now here's a screen recording of the autofocus, you can see. So I'm focusing in on that player, even though I'm behind him before the play, and then I take it off. Now I'm grabbing the quarterback there. I've got it set to small spot tracking. So you can see I picked up the running back there pretty quickly, and there's one of the frames that I got. So no flicker or banding on that one. And you can see zoomed in, that's very sharp. Yep, and I'm at 12,800 on that shot actually. So that just shows you how good that file is, even at that ridiculously high ISO. Okay, so here's a couple good ones real quick, where it shows it stayed pretty close to the quarterback. I think I got that guy rushing him, and then that was an incomplete pass. But you saw how quickly I was able to switch. It stayed on the quarterback, got somebody running in front of him, and I got the lineman on that one. But then I was able to turn with that 300, which that guy was pretty close to me down on the sidelines, turn, and it focused immediately on him. I thought that I had another video. There it is. Oh, that's the one we watched earlier. Okay. Okay, so you can see how responsive and how quick it is, and how well it stayed with the player. So very impressed by that. You know, I've not experienced a camera with better autofocus than this, honestly, other than the A9 III, which is, you know, built for sports. This one is obviously for everything. It does everything well. Okay, so let's look at some of the pictures now. Okay, so now we're at 6400 ISO, 1/1000th. And you can see it's staying there right with where I had the autofocus. It didn't go in or out, stayed right with what I was doing. Now, here's an example of the flicker. Okay, so right now we're clean, right? And everything's good. Now you can see right here on the goalpost where it's white up on the top left, it's starting to get that brown tinge to it. And so now that band is going to come down across the frame. Right, this is actually a different play. Okay, I thought that was the same one when I picked them, but you can see it started to come down right here over number 15 in the white jersey. You can see it's coming down over him. Now here we got number 24 running the ball, and you can see how great that focus is sticking with him. All right. So actually, let's go back here. So I'm going to go back. I thought that I picked, okay. I'm going to close that, and then I'm going to unfilter this, see if there's any more of that play. So you can see that brown tinge is coming further down, and it's a lot darker, and it's got that like magenta tint to it. So that, again, that's from the lights. I don't think that's going to be a problem in every stadium, like I said, but it is doing it. Unfortunately, it was doing it with these. Now let's go. All right, let's just go through these. Now so this is still at the beginning of the game before I even turn variable shutter on. So that band is going to come across the frame like this because of the way the sensor's being read. With the global shutter, like I said, you don't have an issue with that. Now this one at the end, you do see the bottom of the frame start to get a little bit brown. It doesn't ruin it quite as much. This one, the quarterback drops back. Stayed with him very nicely. Those are both perfect. Okay, so here's an example of 12,800 ISO. So I'm going to zoom in so you can see how clean that is. That's, I mean, amazing. I would have no problem shooting with that at all. Another one zoomed out a little bit more. So, you know, when you're zoomed out, you're going to lose quality. Zooming in to 100% here, you can see, I mean, still quite a bit of detail, even though I was zoomed out. And this is across the field. Again at 12,800, and I was able to catch him on the sideline. It's not quite as sharp as those other ones, but that's still pretty good because he was in a basically just a big pile of people and shot out over on the sideline, and I was still able to get him relatively quickly, and it stayed pretty sharp on me. So that was good. Now you can see the brown band at the bottom of the frame here a little bit. This is the one that I had the video on. So actually he threw that one downfield. Here's the one where he threw it down the sideline. So it stays on the quarterback. Now it went to the lineman here a little bit on the right when he came across in the front, which it's still, the quarterback is still sharp enough that I would deliver that. And then you can see how quickly I had to turn to the sideline and got the ball and the receiver, which that's extremely hard to do. So that shows you when you're that tight and you can't zoom in or zoom out with the prime like this, that's not an easy shot. And you've got to have amazing autofocus to be able to pick that up. So it definitely did it, and very impressive. Now, a little bit of banding out at the bottom, but this was so this shutter speed was 1/899. So that is the variable shutter being used right there. So you can see that did help quite a bit. Let's see if we have any other ones here. I feel like that I shot some at like 960 maybe, like I said. I'm gonna go back. I'm just gonna hold this down and go back and see if I can. Okay, so there's 1093. And for some reason, it's just, sometimes it's worse than others, and I don't really know what, you know, I'm not really 100% sure why it is worse sometimes, but this one, this is at 960, and it's pretty clean. There's no really banding at all. And so like I said, the mechanical shutter, if you want to switch to that, you're not going to have that issue if you do shoot at a stadium like that. The electronic shutter is going to be, you can get it with the mechanical shutter, it's just not going to be as bad. But the frames per second is not going to be as high either, so it's kind of a trade-off there. But overall, I mean, like I said, it's the best autofocus I've ever used. Very impressed. So the reason that you're going to want this camera, so it's going to retail for $6,500, and the A9 III is, I believe, $6,000. So this is a little bit more, but you're going to get the extra stabilization and you're going to get the higher megapixels. So tonight, whenever I use this as my main body, once I figured out the variable shutter and it performed a little bit better as far as the color goes and the flicker, it would be really handy to be able to crop in so much and not lose resolution, you know. But you can do anything. You can do portraits with it, you can do action, you can do video, and it's going to perform well no matter what. And that is really why it is the flagship. Obviously, it does everything well, and it really doesn't have any weaknesses, honestly. Yes, the global shutter does have advantages with flash. Obviously, we talked about that earlier in the previous video, and we'll link that also so you can check that out too. So you have to use high-speed sync with the shutter, the electronic shutter or the mechanical shutter here. But you know, you can still shoot with flash. It's not that big of a deal. You just get more power out of it with the global shutter. And then the flicker is never going to be an issue with that. No banding or anything, or warping or anything like that with video. So, but this is an incredible camera. So I guess the real question is, would I upgrade to the A9 Mark II after using it for almost a week? And I've pretty much done. I've shot a game with it in low light. I've shot portraits with it. I've shot action portraits with it with strobe. Pretty much all the kind of work that I would do. I would say it's a complicated answer, because if you have the A1 and the A9 III already, I would say maybe not, because that's an expense. Now, if you can afford it, absolutely, because it is an upgrade over the first A1. But if that is somewhat of an issue at least, and you have both those bodies, I would say probably not. But if you don't have both of them, then I would seriously consider it, because there are advantages to having this over the A9 III in certain situations, because of the stabilization for video, because of the resolution whenever you're shooting any kind of sports or action, you know, things like that. So you can crop it. Because like I said, you know, this 300 becomes a 450 millimeter lens, and then you're still shooting at 25 megapixels, you know, down from 50. So, you know, that's definitely an advantage. That's the only thing that I really that I miss with the A9 III, is the ability to have a little bit higher resolution when I need it. So 25, 26 is enough, but 50 is better in certain situations, like tonight, for example. So. But overall, I really enjoyed my time with it. I want to thank Sony for sending it to me ahead of time. That was really cool, and a great experience to get to use it before everybody else. So I hope that this video helped you guys understand better how the camera is going to work, what it's going to be about. You know, my thoughts are I absolutely love it. It wasn't a huge upgrade in a lot of areas, but they're very welcome upgrades. The screen, like I said, the screen is the sole reason I stopped using the original A1 except for sports, because it didn't flip out the way this one does. So if I had this one, I would definitely use it more. So, because the autofocus is second to none from what I've used anyway. So. Okay, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, I'd appreciate a like, a subscribe. Make sure you hit the bell so you get notified whenever we post new content. There's going to be a lot more to come. And also make sure you go to my website, Matthernandez.shop, sign up for the newsletter. We always announce whenever we've got new videos coming out, new tutorials, new workshops, new templates, that kind of thing. So make sure you stay up to date with that. And I appreciate you watching. We'll see you next time.